Hello and welcome everyone to this month's edition of CloudBytes, Sage Intacct Release 4, hosted by Dean Dorton. Presenting today is Dale Stratton, our Software Services Manager. As I said, we will be covering the Release 4 today. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please use the chat feature at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. We will be monitoring it throughout the presentation, and we'll make sure to share any technical questions with today's presenters at the end. If we do not address your question during today's presentation, contact information is included at the end of the materials. So please reach out after as needed. This webinar is being recorded and will be emailed to you by the end of this week. Thank you so much for joining us today. Do not hesitate to ask questions, and without further ado, I give you Dale Stratton.
Hey, Julia, can you hear me well?
Yes, you sound great. Thank you.
Fantastic. Well, hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Dale Stratton, Software Services Manager here at Dean Dorton, and I'm going to go over the Sage Intacct Release 4, or the fourth quarter release. There's a lot of different ways we refer to that, but as you know, Intacct releases, or hope you know, Intacct releases an update 4 times per year, and this is the last release of 2022.
Dale, we seem to have lost your audio. You muted yourself somehow. There we go.
It just magically did it. I didn't click a thing. So let's make sure that doesn't happen again. Thank you for letting me know.
Fantastic. Of course.
So our release information that we're going to cover, I'll let you in on the secret that I'm not sharing any magic behind the scenes information with you today. I'm going to show you how you can find this release information on your own. So by all means, I want you to come watch me talk about this stuff. But once you see this and you go, I really want to know more about that part, I'm going to show you where you can go find that information and where you can read more about it. You can find the how-tos, you can walk through the steps. Now, if you have ever attended one of our Enlighten sessions that we do annually for our client user group, you've seen me do this before, because I think it's important that you know how to do this on your own. And I can always make a little joke that probably the worst thing that I can do for me and the best thing I can do for you as a consultant is to show you how to not need me. But that's what I'm going to do today on these release highlights. I'm going to cover the major R4 highlights, and then I'm going to demo the R4 common functionality. So a lot of times in the releases, they'll get into specific modules or enhancements to specific modules that not everyone has. So I'll just cover what those are and give you a glimpse at those. But instead of taking everybody's time to go over a module that not everyone has, we'll just stick to the common pieces. Now, in that, I will preface, this CloudBytes release may be somewhat shorter than what you're used to. In R4, it seemed like a lot of the functionality releases were for specific modules and for modules that are either an early adopter, which means that they're only released to a very small client and partner group at this time, and they're really in what I would call, I don't know if you'd use the word beta, but they're basically still in testing. They're going through, it's been rolled out, but it's still in the information and quality control phase, if I would put it that way. So not everyone has access to those. So a lot of the things that I'll show you with those additional modules will be things that will come out next year potentially, unless you're already on the early adopter list. And then I will demo some of the common R4 functionality for you once we get into Intacct. All right, let's start with some ways that you would find R4 information. So when you log into Intacct after a major release, you will notice the pop-up on the main screen, welcome to release and whatever number. They give you some of the highlights right there on the screen, and you can say, remind me later to see that again. Notice you've got the little link right there in the middle that says read the release notes. That takes you right over to where you need to be to start going through the different modules of what you might find some interest in. You can just click got it, and that goes away and doesn't show up again. The next place on the home screen, and I'll show you how to get there, it's the little house button in the top left. That's in case you don't log in and jump directly to the home screen, and I'll talk about that when we get into Intacct. but there are at least 3 places that I've highlighted right here on this screen that take you to the release notes. So there are lots of links to get you to the same place so that you can find information. First up, AP bill automation. I've had this question in the last 3 weeks. So does Intacct do automatic AP bills like Bill.com and other AP solution providers? And historically, the answer is, well, no, they just leave that up to the marketplace. A few releases ago, in the last, I'd say year and a half, they released something called vendor payment solutions. So it was to allow you to enter your bills into Intacct and then have a payer solution to pay those bills, kind of like a Bill.com would do, or an AP payer solution. Until now, they've not had an option for processing those bills and working those through an input solution. So for instance, what the AP bill automation tries to do is it allows the vendor to email the bill to a specific email address. It comes into Intacct in a draft stage. You review those bills. It has the attachment from the PDF and the email. You work through those, you code them, you put those through your approval processes, and then you post them. And then you could use the separate vendor payment solutions to pay those bills, or you could print checks for them and record EFTs to them, just like you would a normal AP bill process and payment process. There are several features to this, but what it's really trying to do is to do something similar to what Bill.com or those other AP payment providers have done for a long time. And I use Bill.com because we have quite a few clients on there, but there are, I think the last time I checked, 25 to 30 different AP solution providers that are marketplace partners that hook up directly to Intacct and have a pretty good integration between the two. At this point, my opinion would be that I think those solution providers have been doing it for a long time, and if you're already using one of those, I wouldn't necessarily jump to AP bill automation at this point. I'd give it a little time to get the bugs worked out, get those kinks pulled out. So I would stick with what I had. Now, if you're brand new to Intacct, then let's maybe look at this if that's something that you feel like you need. At this point, AP bill automation is still in, and let me get the right verbiage here. It is in early adopter phase. So not everyone has this, and VARs do not have the ability to add this just yet. So it will be in 2023 when, if you are a VAR client, that you can add AP bill automation. Now, it's not a per purchase module, but it does have a transaction fee associated. So a lot of the payment solution providers have that. So the numbers that I've seen look like 50 cents per bill that you process through the system. So it's a per transaction fee that you have with this. Next up, Sage Intacct Planning. Sage Intacct Planning is what was renamed from Sage Intacct Budgeting and Planning. They dropped out the word budget from there. This is an add-on module. They have added some enhancements to it. So if you're using Sage Intacct Planning, you can now do grid entry to change your budget data. It works a whole lot like an Excel spreadsheet. It just gives you a nice editable grid layout that you can work through. They have also added statistical accounts. Hopefully everyone on this call knows what a statistical account is. If not, make sure and reach out and we can talk to you about those. What those are those accounts that hold non-financial data. So number of employees, like head count, square footage in each department or each floor, tons sold. So there's some quantity that is not a balancing entry. So you could increase the number of employees or full-time employees in each department, and you could increase that. And when you have a new hire, and you can decrease that, somebody leaves. And those can then be used in calculations. Those can be used without Sage Intacct Planning. So if you hear the word statistical count, you think, I've been wanting to do that for a long time. Let us know. Just reach out to Dean Dorton at erpsupport@ddaftech.com, and we'll help you with those statistical counts. They're included in Intacct Accounting, but they have just now added those in Sage Intacct Planning. Lease accounting automation. This would be for a not-for-profit. So this is to go along with ASC 842 compliance, where you are the leasee side tracking this, and you are supposed to track all of your leases that are beyond 12 months. And it's to help you track those automated right of usage depreciation, to work those through the general ledger and to do all that posting for you. When you get into it, it looks a whole lot like just an expansion of a fixed assets. It's not part of the fixed asset module, but it seems to work much in a similar way, where you set up the rates and it creates those journal entries for you, and it handles all of those lease liabilities that you now have on your balance sheet. Now this also is in early adopter. So notice the little star up there. That's the early adopter phase. And that means that only a certain number of clients have this and still testing that out. They expect it to be generally available next year at some point in 23. Sage Intacct Payroll, powered by ADP. So for years, I've had clients moving from other platforms that may have an included payroll solution, so Dynamics GP or QuickBooks or something like that, that are moving to Intacct. Well, how do I do my payroll? Over the years, I've watched almost all of our clients move to some sort of hosted payroll solution, whether it's Paycor, Paychex, ADP. There's plenty of them out there. Well, Intacct has never had a built-in payroll solution. So what they've done is they've had an ADP integration, but now this is a much more tight, refined integration between ADP, and they're calling that Sage Intacct Payroll. It's just for Sage Intacct. It's not necessarily inside of Intacct, but it coordinates directly with. So what it does is allows you to really run ADP Payroll and integrate directly and seamlessly with Intacct. It also has other pieces beyond payroll, so you'll get into HCM, which stands for Human Capital Management, so an HR solution, reporting, benefits, all those types of things are part of that Intacct Payroll, but it's really powered by ADP Payroll. Let me take a look on this next screen. Here are the things that should sync with Intacct. So it should post automatically to the general ledger. So any transactions that you post through payroll will hit your GL directly. It will sync employee data from Intacct, from Sage Intacct to Intacct or Sage Intacct Payroll, the dimensions. So your departments, your locations, your classes, whatever you call those, will sync from Intacct to the payroll solution. Expense reimbursement. If you're using Sage Intacct's time and expense module and you're paying employees expenses, it can sync to the payroll module to pay those. And also inbound and outbound time. So if you do enter time into the time and expense module, it can also sync to Sage Intacct Payroll as well. And vice versa. Time entry into Sage Intacct Payroll can sync to Intacct's time entry system. Next, now this is a change that every user should see that has security access to 1099 information. They moved the 1099 screen. So previously, everything was over on the right-hand side under reports. You had a 1099 reports and all those different forms, the 1096, the export file. Now I think that even said something different. I think it said create 1099 file. I think they finally realized, well, that's not really a part of a report. I know how I feel about that. Some of the forms that print out are technically reports, but they split those out and put all that 1099 working information over underneath the left-hand column. So you've got your export file, your print 1096 and print 1099 forms over on the left-hand side. The 1099 report is still over on the right-hand side. So if you're wondering where that went, they moved it over on the left. And if you don't see those things and need to, that's because you don't have security privileges to view those. And that would just be a user role change that you would need to make. An additional feature, and notice the 2 stars on this one. This is a limited release feature, which means they've only rolled this out to certain customers. If you have a dire need for this, for 1099 e-filing, we can try to get you into the program, but for this year, it was a very limited release. I expect open availability next year, hopefully. They will have that open to everyone. Essentially what this is you still work your 1099s in Intacct like always. So you set up your vendors, you process your 1099 transactions, you review your 1099 reports, you adjust your 1099 amounts. All of that happens in Intacct like it always has. You create your file, and when you're ready to e-file, you then send that e-file to Tax Bandits. That's that's who they've partnered with for this. Then you create a Tax Bandit account. The Tax Bandits go through, they validate the 1099 information, and they will do the IRS submission, the state submission, and they will even print and mail your tax forms to your individual recipients if needed to be. So that is not a purchase module, but it has a per price to do that. And here's the pricing that I grabbed off of Tax Bandits webpage. You can go there to taxbandits.com/sage-pricing. And it looks like it's basically a per form price to federal, allow online retrieval, 1099 state e-file, and then posting postal mail. So to print and mail those out to your 1099 recipients. And you notice the first 10 somewhat pricey, the next 90 go down, and decreasing in number of forms from there. I believe the number right now, the last information I had, where your requirement to e-file was 250. So if you have more than 250 1099s, you have to e-file with the IRS. Now you can still create your 1099 file, go get a 1099 Pro program, something like that, and then just upload information and do that filing from there. This seems to be very similar to that, but it's integrating with Intacct to pull that information from the file. Like I said, as of right now, not everyone can do that. If you have a dire need, we can try and see if we can get you in the program, but not everyone's going to be able to do it at this point, hoping for more availability next year. Set up bank payments for France and Ireland. I don't know how many clients that I work with that have bank payments in France and Ireland, not very many that I can think of. But essentially what this is the window when you set up your checkbook on the bank file tab. It has where you can enable ACH, which most U.S. vendors or most U.S. customers will do to pay their vendors via ACH. This gives you the option to set up a bank file. And I've had people ask me, what's that? Unless you are in South Africa or France or Ireland or some other country that requires that, it essentially works like an ACH, where you set up your checkbook to have the ACH or bank file information. Then you go set up your vendor with the bank information on the vendor. Then you process bills from that vendor, and then you go generate the bank file, and then you upload the bank file to your bank, and your bank makes those payments on behalf. Very similar to an ACH process, essentially the exact same thing. Instead of a standard ACH format, it's just a different format. So that SEPA format is what Intacct is now included, but it has to be, and I'll show you on the next screen here. So you have to have your country on your checkbook set to Ireland or France. Your currency has to be euro. And then on the bank file tab, you set enable bank file payments, and you pick that generic SEPA type. This is something that everyone can use, and this actually came from customer recommendations. So when people make a, hey, you should do this, nudge to Intacct, sometimes they listen. And so keep making those enhancement requests. And what this is a central place on the help file to show all the compliance information. So it really just lists all the different types of compliance and the audit help that Intacct can be set up to do. So it gives you a place that when auditors ask for what can your system do or what's its capabilities, you have information there, but you also have things that you can read through to better help you set up Intacct to prepare for an audit. And I'll show you that on the screen. Notice this picture, there will be a little arrow out beside compliance when we get there. This was taken before R4 was actually released. Something else for everyone, embedded training. Now you may have noticed these things. So when a new user logs in to Intacct for the first time, you get a product walkthrough. They give you a little 2-minute, it's quick, it goes by. You can also close it, skip it. Also, new screens. So when you go to the bill screen or the payment screen, it has a little window walkthrough for you for that feature. Now, where I run into issues is I log into a lot of different clients, and every single one of them that I walk through log into the first time, I get those walkthrough screens. So I've seen those many, many times. Now, the one that I think I really want to show everyone when we get into Intacct is they have added video features under the Help Center. And there are some really quick, small videos. They're 3-4 minute videos that a lot of times people that haven't used a particular part of a module, and they're pretty common ones, let's say how to void an AP payment or how to record an AP payment made outside of Intacct where you're not writing a check. So some really good video features there that I want to show you and make sure everybody knows how to get to. Sage Intelligent Time Enhancement. So Sage Intelligent Time is another module that not everyone has. You have to have either project costing and billing, grant tracking and billing, which they've just added, and or the construction module. You have to have one of those modules to use this. What it is, it's essentially a separate process. They have a desktop feature, and they also have a mobile app where it helps you to record your time, and it can hook up with your calendar, with your email, with Intacct's time tracking features, and it tries to give you suggestions on where you spent your time and to help you record that time, that time entry. I know most people at the end of the week, you're filling out your time card and trying to remember what you did and what you worked on and how long you worked on it, and I'm guilty of that myself. But Sage Intelligent Time tries to use AI features or artificial intelligence to try to figure some of that out for you and make suggestions for your time entry. And then that then syncs to Intacct's time and expense module. But like I said, you have to have either grant tracking and billing or costing and billing. You have to have project costing and billing, grant tracking and billing, or the construction module in order to use that. And what the new enhancements, they have added the grant tracking piece for not-for-profits. The project costing and billing, they basically fine-tune it, which means they've gone through, they listened to customers that have used it and thought that it needed tweaks, and they've made those to help capture every billable minute, they say. And they've also rolled this out internationally, so now you can use it in Canada, South Africa, and Australia. Sage Intacct Construction Payroll. Of course, this is just for the construction module. And if you've ever worked in the construction industry, payroll in that industry can be very complex. It's much more than salaried employees and employees that just calculate how many hours they work during the week and paying them overtime. So you have a whole lot of applied to specific jobs. You have a whole lot of rates that can change based on job type or location or union status. So the construction payroll is just for the construction module, and if you're interested in that, let us know. We can work with you on getting that set up and looking for that. But I'm guessing a lot of general use clients won't ever see the construction payroll module. Next, Sage Estimating integration for the construction module. So Sage Estimating is another tool that helps you use workflow to create bids, to create estimates, to help flow those into quotes, those types of things. The estimating module is completely separate add-on module from the construction module, but they have created an integration between the two to help move those estimates into the construction module. Audit history reports. So Intacct gave us a few packaged reports where they've added the history by object detail and the history by user report. And I'll show you those. You actually have to go to platform services to install those, and you have to be a full business user, a full admin business user in order to install those. I'll show you where those are and how to install them and how to look at them and the choices you can make when you're running those and the filters you have. And for more information, you can always email erpsupport@ddaaftech.com. That's our support email address. So if you run into issues in Intacct and need help or anything or any information about what you've seen here today, make sure and just email that and we'll find the right person to help you get information and help you get up and going on whatever support you need. All right, let's take a look at a little demo of some things here. Let me get to my Intacct window. Now, I've started off on a dashboard, and just in case you didn't know, you can set Intacct, it's a personal preference, on which screen you want to start on. So if I start on a dashboard, I may never see my home screen. So let me show you how to get to that. That little home button right here, that takes me to my home screen, and of course I talked too long. That's all our setting or our timeout preferences that we can change. So when I log into my company, I'm going to go directly to the home screen, and I'll show you where to find release note information. So on the release notes, remember I showed you on the PowerPoint, we've got a link here, a link here, a link down here. So all of those things are going to take you to a page where you can read about Release 4. Intacct does a very good job of putting information out there for you to use. You just have to go get it. So what you can do is you can look through these and look under Accounts Payable. Oh, enhancements to the bank file, announcing AP automation rollout, budgeting and planning. And say, I don't have that module, so you just skip that. Compliance. Oh, this came from you for an idea. Construction, inventory control. Now under inventory control, this one isn't really fair. This is talking about fulfillment. It was actually released in a previous release, I think it was R2, where they're going to set up the pick, pack, ship, invoice methodology, which you can do some of that through custom transaction definitions, but this is really to try to integrate that into a consolidated pick, pack, ship, invoice method. But it was released in a previous release, so you've probably already seen this if you've attended other CloudBytes. So there's the lease accounting. I do want to show you something under taxes. This is something I think that everyone should go do, and maybe not today, but pretty soon. The Get Ready for 1099 season. I know that comes up on everyone, and you don't have to have that done until the 31st of January, and a lot of people say, well, I'll start on that on the 20th of January. I recommend not waiting that long. Go ahead and start to read through the 1099 season and what that entails. We typically hold a 1099 review session or help a lot of clients with 1099s when they have questions. But essentially, you want to make sure your vendors are set up correctly, make sure that you have tagged the 1099 transactions correctly during the year, make sure you run your reports, make sure your balances match. If not, there are templates that can help you update the vendor, templates that can help you update 1099 transactions, and even templates that can help you change the opening balance. So if you are new to Intacct this year and have never run 1099s and you entered your vendors at some point during the middle of the year and you did not enter your 1099 balances from your previous system, you'll need to make sure you do that before you can run 1099s for the end of 22. And if you have trouble with any of those things, please reach out. We'll help. But again, I would take a read through this page. They give you a lot of nice links over here to the 1099 workflow. These are in this page. So you'll see order forms, prepare, and requirements. Those are all listed here. This related topics give you a lot of good information. Step-by-step guide to 1099. I would read through that one. Right. That is the release notes piece. Something else I want to show you. You can go back to releases, prior releases here. You can look at release 3. So if there's something that you wonder about that you just didn't read over in release 3, release 2, other releases, you can go back and read through those. And also in release, they have a video highlight that actually gives you an overall highlight. It's 7 minutes or so. It doesn't take long to listen to. And then they will break down several of these into different videos. So for instance, if you're wondering about that Sage Payroll powered by ADP, go watch that video, the overview video. It gives you 5 minutes, it gives you some screenshots, it talks about what you're going to be able to do with it and what it could look like, but it's a good introduction. So a lot of good information on the release notes pages. I know I preach that and get on my soapbox every time we talk about releases, but I think it's a good thing to know how to get to. All right, next thing, let's take a look at the 1099 menu. So under accounts payable, remember right here under 1099s, we have our print 1096, print 1099, export the file, and then still under the 1099 is your 1099 report. This is where you're going to start most of the time. Your 1099 report is where you go to run to see if your vendors have the amounts that you think they should have. Next step, let's take a look at that compliance overview. So a couple of things are going to be up here underneath the help and support. So if we go to the Help Center, under the Help Center, under Basics, Compliance, and we have a Compliance Overview. Now they break it down into different sections, but if you just go to the Compliance Overview, you're going to see those different sections listed right here. There's a lot of really good reading in this. This is to help you get ready for SOX, your SOX reporting, any other thing like that that Intacct coordinates with as far as compliance goes. So reading through internal controls, audit focuses, things like that. All right, also in the Help window, on the Help Center, I wanted to show you this video library. So you just go to Help Center, Video Library, and in here, tremendous amount of quick little videos. So for instance, I used the one void or reverse after posting. There's a really good video on that. Pay a bill by using a check. And in here, it's going to show you how to record a bill using the using the record transfer feature. That way, I hand wrote a check or I used an EFT or something of that nature. I highly recommend go look through these videos. If there's anything in there that you're struggling with, check the video out. There's not a lot of time investment and some pretty good information. All right. Last but not least was the audit trail reports. Let me show you these, and then I'll show you how to install them. They're going to appear under General Ledger Custom Reports. I'll show you how to get them there. Now, like I said, you have to be a full admin business user. Go to Platform Services, Custom Packages, and under Custom Packages, there will be a package library. And Intacct just added these two reports right here, Audit History by Object Area Report and Audit History by User Report. You just click Install. After you install them, refresh your window, refresh your screen, and then when you go to General Ledger, they will show up under Custom Reports. Of course, you would have to have access to General Ledger Custom Reports in order to see those. This is the Object Data Area Report. Notice you can use a date range here, and then you can pick an object area. So if we were to pick, let's say, AP bill. See, there's a lot of different object areas here. You can pick multiple, but I pick AP bill. I can pick a specific action. Who accessed it, create, delete, modify, leave that empty for all of them. Or I could pick a specific user, or I can leave that empty for all of them. And when I view this report, I didn't put any date ranges, so there's going to be a lot of junk on this one. Notice object area is the left-hand column. Then we have the action, the date, details, notes, and who did it. If we go take a look at the audit history by user, this is going to be a very similar report, but they just rearrange it. So for instance, we pick the user first, and then we can pick the object to data area. So if I leave this one blank this time, Now our first column is the user, and then we have the data area, what they did with it, the date, the details, if they've made a field change, notes for that, record number. And I even have a little link over here where I can go take a look at that. So that was a transaction allocation that I had looked at. But again, you install those under Platform Services, Custom Packages, Package Library, hit Install next to the two audit reports, then they'll show up under General Ledger, Custom Reports. But you do have to be a full admin business user in order to install those. All right, those are the pieces that would apply to, I think, everyone in Release 4. So there wasn't a whole lot of additions to individual modules this time. There was some general information, 1099 info. There are a whole lot of modules that you might use. Most of those are going to be in 2023, and there were some specific module updates to construction, payroll services, AP bill automation, so some additional modules that you can get into if you have a need for that in your vertical. What questions do you all have?
At this time, Gail, we do not have any questions, but we definitely encourage everyone to share.
Yes, and make sure to remember that if you do have questions over any of these features or anything you're trying to work on or need help with, please reach out to erpsupport@ddaaftech.com. All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate your time today. Hopefully you found something valuable here that you can go look at. And if nothing else, you at least know where to find information. Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone.